Just got this question asked by someone, and the question is, could God create a peer? And the question has to deal with the idea of if God, it's sort of the old question of if God is so powerful and God is omnipotent and omniscient and all of these things, can a God who is all powerful create another all powerful being? It's sort of the old question: can God create a rock too big for him to move? And what I wanted to do is to get into this question a little bit because I think it's an important question. But I also think that in understanding the question, we need to understand what we're talking about when we talk about God. God in Himself is the greatest possible being. He is the greatest possible thing. When we talk about the Christian formulation of God, which is my assumption is that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a being that is infinite and perfect in all His ways. The Bible describes God through this idea of omni, which means all, and then you've got omnipotent, which is all power, potent, omnipotent, which is power, omniscient, omniscient, omniscience, all knowing, omnipresent, everywhere. And so when we're talking about that, what we're talking about is this quality of being all. God is infinite. He is all. And so if God is infinite, then what we're talking about is a being, and just looking at the board, that that um, everything is within that being, all power. Let me just erase that for a second. Go back. All power, um, all knowledge, all love, all of those things exist in Him. He is the source. He is the holder. He is the one from which all of these things flow. And so, because God is these things, then He cannot cease to be these things. God cannot create a peer, because for God to create a peer, then what has to happen is that He has to create one that is equal in knowledge, power, and love. And so, in that sense, He ceases to be all powerful. Now He is dual powerful. And so He ceases to be God. He is no longer all loving. He is one of two beings that is loving. And so He ceases to be God. So in His nature, it is impossible for God to create something or someone that is a peer, because then God would cease to be God. A.W. Tozer talks about this in his book, The Attributes of God, when talking about His infinitude. And I love what he says here. If God had all the power there is except a little bit, and if someone else had a little bit of power hoarded that God could not get to, then we couldn't worship God. We couldn't say that this God is of infinite power, because He wouldn't be of infinite power. He'd just be close to it. While He would be more powerful than any other being, and perhaps even more powerful than all the beings in the universe lumped together, He would still have a defect, and therefore He wouldn't be God. Our God is perfect, perfect in knowledge and power. And He goes on to talk about goodness. If there was any goodness, one spot in God that was not good, then He wouldn't be God. If He was loving, and had 99.9% of love, God still wouldn't be God. Um, and what Tozer says, and I love this sort of to tie this together in a bow. For God to be God, He must be infinite in all that He is. He must have no bound and no limit, no stopping place, no point beyond which He can't go. When you think of God or anything about God, you'll have to think infinitely about God. And so the answer to your question is, could God create a peer? The answer is no, God could not create a peer, because in creating a peer, God would cease to be God. I hope that's been helpful to you as you think about these things. Have a great day.